Let's get started with our first keynote. Today, we have with us Noam Krakover, Chief Revenue Officer at the Israeli aerospace industry, IAI-ELTA. He will be talking about cybersecurity for smart mobility, a global necessity. Please feel free to post any questions you may have, and we will do our best to answer them before the session ends. You can also reach out to IAI-ELTA by going to the company booth for text, voice, or video chat with the booth manager. So I'll hand over now to Noam. Good morning, Noam.
Hello.
Hello, good morning, and welcome aboard. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, not too bad, not too bad. Thank you for joining. We are very excited about your keynote today, covering the topic of cybersecurity for smart mobility, a global necessity. So I am gonna wait till you have everything under control, and we check that the slide deck is visible and everything is perfect. And after that, I'm gonna mute my mic and start to learn a little bit about the topic.
Just an answer. Is this just you and me, and we are recording, or is there any audience?
Yeah. So basically, there is a huge audience right now.
Oh, great!
And we are recording too. So
okay.
Basically, you are live.
I'm live, so I can tell jokes and react to the audience.
Exactly, right. And at the end of the discussion, we are going to have time for a Q&A. So, yeah. So, please go
Let's
ahead.
see if you can see my presentation. Just a minute. Share screen. ITS2, and you are supposed to see my screen right now.
Actually, I can see it perfectly.
Wow, everything is working.
Yeah.
We're on the edge of catastrophe. Usually it doesn't work in the beginning.
Listen, no, this is a 5-day event. So we have had, so far, this is day like 35 keynotes, all of them work. We have had, at this very moment, 7 executive roundtables. Yesterday, we have, half of the leaders from Israeli companies here. We have, Deto Hassoum, we have Yossi Sneg, we have many, the guys from BDO. We have many guys. Everything works so far. So I expect that based on that track record, today is going to work perfectly.
Well, let's see who is going to be the first one to blow the statistics.
The past cannot predict the future, but definitely, can provide some insight about that. So hindsight. So please, sir, go ahead.
Okay. So tell me, when can I start?
Please let's get started.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. My name is Noam Krakover. And again, I'm honored and very happy to meet you all today. I'm from IAI. I'm going to present myself in a minute. I was asked to speak today about cybersecurity for smart mobility as a global necessity. So I'll try to answer it. Before that, a little about myself. My name is Noam again, and I'm dealing with cyber for more than 20 years now. You can believe it. And most of them for the Israeli government. My last position for the Israeli government was in the INCB, Israel National Cyber Directorate. I was head of one of the divisions over there. Actually, I was part of the team that established the first team that established the INCB. And 4 years ago, I joined the IAI-ELTA, that I'm going to present in a minute. And my task, my title, my job is the Chief Revenue Officer. Mainly deal with sales, marketing, but mainly strategy for our customers and for our own division. Now, our division is part of IAI. IAI is the largest and biggest defense industry in Israel, dealing with everything, starting with radars to airplanes, different kind of missiles, and also for cyber. We are dealing with cyber now for more than 8 years. And the most important thing about us is we have our own IP, but not only that we have our own IP, we also deal with, we also lead the Israeli cyber companies consortiums. Actually, we have 3 of them. One of them is dealing with national level projects. We have a lot of, or at least many international activity regarding this. But we have also two other consortiums. Each consortium, consists of huge Israeli companies that we are leading, and some small, actually some startups, what allows us to bring to the table a combination between cutting edge technology, huge companies, integration capabilities, and very interesting innovation and ideas. So it's very good, and actually it was so good, so we established two other consortiums. One of them is dealing with aviation, and the last one, the most new one, is dealing with transportation. That I'm going to elaborate about it in a minute. We work worldwide, you can see, including in Spanish-speaking countries, in Tier 1, Tier 2, and sometimes even in Tier 3 countries, in Europe and in other continents. Very, very interesting, a lot of lessons learned, if I may. I think that one of our main advantages is our experience and the lesson learned that we have and that we are willing to share with our partners and customers. So it's very interesting. And if I need to define us and to define our approach when we sat to the table and started to deal with smart mobility and smart transportation and how to defend them in a better way, we decided, or we believe, that strategic challenges require strategic solutions. But, well, I'm sure that we are all experts, and we are all familiar with the industry and the tendency of the customers or the government to purchase wonderful tools. Let's call it the magic boxes, I tend to call it. Let's admit that some of them are very expensive boxes. But in IAI, we claim that it's definitely not enough. We can defend a platform. I have a specific line of defending platforms and equipment and different systems. But this is not enough. We need to give it or to bring to the table what we call end-to-end solutions, because otherwise we're going to fail. Because otherwise, again, I'm sure that you are experts, and we know that this domain, this cyber domain, is so dynamic, and the technology is so advanced, so the bad guys with their capabilities will find always, or at least they try to find the weak chain, the weakest chain, the weakest point in the chain, and they'll take advantage of it. So we need to take care of everything, and this consists of few major building blocks like technology, methodology, constant innovation, and other stuff, because cyber in general, and including the threats, cyber threats for smart transportation, is so advanced, and so the risks are so high, so we need to adopt a different approach. We call it sometimes an ecosystem approach, resilience approach. Some of our partners tend to call it, and I tend to accept it, because we need to bring to the table something else. I can protect the platform, but I need to protect the ecosystem. I need to protect the whole system. Otherwise, I'm going to fail. And this is a major thing. And this is just as an example, the way we see cyber ecosystem and the connections that we need to deal with in order to build such an ecosystem or resilience in this ecosystem, starting with the government and its responsibilities, the industry and the awareness, the academy and the human resource, how to combine all of them together and how to take care of each one of these, let's call it major pillars, because they are connected, because connectivity is one of the magics, or the magic word, and we need to take care of it. Otherwise, we're going to fail. And here, just as an example, and I'm going to elaborate about this slide in, 20 minutes, because it's part of the solution for smart mobility. Again, Usually when we are speaking, people are approaching me and starting to speak about how we defend the platform. And it's very, very important. But it's way more than platform itself. We need to have, let's call it, a situational awareness of the ecosystem. And it's connected to critical infrastructure, it's connected to financial systems, and of course it's connected or relevant, to smart mobility. Or we need to have capability to share information between the customers, between the OEMs, between the vendors, between everyone. Otherwise, we're going to fail. And these systems should be fit for the demands of the ecosystem, of the customers, of the users. Otherwise, they are not going to use such system. For example, just to understand it, everybody today knows how to speak about information sharing platform, but most of them are centralized, and people tend not to share information regarding cyber because of reputation, because of money, because they don't know. And today we are speaking about distributed systems. Otherwise, people tend not to use them. Or, for example, we decided that we need a next generation system. For example, proactive system that can scan from the outside the vulnerabilities of the ecosystem, including, for example, the platforms. And I'm going to present it in a minute. Or, for example, to have a national level situational awareness, because we believe that smart mobility is a critical infrastructure. And I'll show you in a minute why we believe so. So we need a different approach. And this is a few months ago, I stood on one of the stages, I think it was in the UAE, and I used the term, sometimes I feel that we are using old castles and old walls against gunpowder. And this is, or explosives. And this is a major thing. Our technology is evolving all the time, but the bad guys' technology and capabilities are evolving also. So we need to adopt a different approach. Otherwise, we are stuck in an arm race, and we tend to lose in this arm race. So, for example, today in IAI, we are speaking about how to train the people in the high-tech industry, in the transportation industry, and the users themselves, and the decision makers themselves in a better way. Awareness is a major thing, but it's not the only. We're speaking about specific technology that allows the decision makers to have a situational awareness relevant to the ecosystem or to the, let's call it, the field that they are responsible for. We are speaking about a different way to calculate the risk for different, let's call it, sectors, and transportation is one of them. And even in the transportation, just as an example, we can't use the same algorithm to calculate the risk in aviation, in maritime, or in, let's call it, traditional transportation, I mean cars. We need to involve different approaches, different capabilities. But it's much more than that. You know, for years I served for the Israeli government, as I already mentioned, and between 2011, 2018, or till today, Israeli had a wonderful journey. Sometimes we call it the Israeli magic, the Israeli journey. And we advanced a lot, and we improved our ecosystem resilience in general, and in particular in some of the major fields of major sectors. And we did it because, not only because of defense capabilities, this is very important, and I'm going to elaborate about it in a minute, but also because of innovation and R&D capabilities. So, for example, we in IAI, we offer our customers to build together or to build for them as a corporation, international corporation, or sometimes as a product, what we call cyber labs to deal with supply chain problems, to deal with 5G, and also to deal with smart transportation. So, and now I'm getting to the heart of this presentation. In the last year or a bit more, we IAI, as the leader of consortium consisting of other companies that you can see over here, like Alstom, like IDI, like like a major university in Israel, like the Israeli Ministry of Transportation, and other very distinguished members and partners. We won the Israeli tender for establishing the Smart Transportation Lab. And I'm going to elaborate about this lab, but this gives us the context why we deal in IAI. We started to build this capability, and we had to jump into this, let's call it reality, this environment, to understand it in a better way. And the best proof, if I may, to understand the potential or even the reality right now of the smart or intelligent transportation is this. What is happening in the market? What is the CAGR of the CAGR of this market? And we can see that in 7 years, it's going to jump at least in 7%. In my opinion, it's going to be much better. Because this is starting with the trend, but it's way more than the trend. This is the way of life. This is the reality. And we can see, and I'm sure that we are all familiar with it, that it's becoming more and more advanced based on AI, based on big data, and all of the other slogan. But this is the cyber era, and sometimes it's the buzz era. But in here, it's way more than a buzzwords. It's reality, and we are all familiar with it. We're familiar with the opportunities, but there are also, again, not only opportunities, but also challenges. And one of them, we can see it over here, is the connectivity. I'm going to elaborate about it in a minute, but we can understand as cyber experts that something is happening, and the potential for the risk is huge because we are not the only one who can see it. So when we started to work on it, and based on my background, when I'm approaching a cyber or security problem, one of the main things that I'm doing, the first thing that I'm doing, I'm checking what is happening in this world. And of course, we found, and here it's based on different sources. Some of them, I think, in my opinion, this is the Extremes by IBM, wonderful source. We can see a lot of attacks against smart transportation. And this is the first proof, if somebody needed it, that we are facing a problem, a huge problem. Now, I'm sure that you are familiar with most of these events, and of course I can share it with you and share with you way more or a lot more of events. The most important thing, or one of the first things that we identified here, is that most of the attacks are against the ecosystem itself. So we decided that we need to check what is happening with the platforms themselves, because the ecosystem is one thing, and sometimes IT companies say, hey, we know how to prevent it, but we claim it's much more problematic. In here, you can see what is happening with the platform. And these just examples that I picked from the network. There are way more from different sources, very distinguished, very good. Some of them are very, very famous, like what happened with Tesla. Others, you need to be to check it, to look for them, but still, we have all of the proofs, most of them or all of them perfectly relevant, that there is a real, let's call it, threat to the platforms. May I share it with you? I'm dealing not only with land transportation, but also with maritime and aviation transportation. And over there, we can see a lot of attacks against the platform, the ecosystem, but the number of the attacks against the platforms is way smaller, much smaller. But in here, we can see that there is a real threat for the platforms themselves. So we started to check it in a better way to try to understand it. These are just an example. First of all, you can see the major jump in cyber incidents in the automotive industry, more than almost 10 times more. It's huge numbers. We can see the main, and as a cyber experts, we are all, one of the major things is to understand how they penetrate, because it's very nice to say, hey, there are problems. Yes, we're all familiar with these problems, but how the bad guys are penetrating these systems, this magnificent, at least some of them, magnificent systems. And we can see different sources, starting with the servers, again, the cloud or the ecosystem, but this is the weak point, and the bad guys always take advantage of the weak point. But not only that, but also built-in technologies like the keyless start of the cars. And these are just an example. I'm sure that you can share with me way more, a huge number of other events and statistics, but we can see that there is a huge problem, some of it from the periphery of the system, some of them from the heart of the systems. I mentioned that I worked for the Israeli government. So one of the things that we did over there is we started to deal a few years ago with scenarios, terrible scenarios. One of the most famous of them, and we can find them all over the world right now, is what is going to happen if somebody is going to attack one of the trains. Trains that move people or hazardous materials or other things. And of course, the potential of the damage is huge. And we are familiar with it, but it's way more complicated. And I tend to call it, this is the challenge. We are familiar with this kind of drawings, but the main things about them is this ecosystem, this connection between the environment and the platforms themselves, on land, on sea, on and air. We can see three major problems. One of them is the connectivity, because otherwise these systems are not going to work. So there is a huge connectivity. The vulnerabilities, the number of vulnerabilities, I'm going to elaborate about it in a minute. And the dependency. These are not toys. Our whole culture, maybe culture in some places, but our whole economy is dependent on it. Our way of life, starting with daily life, but not only daily life. We live in Israel. Sometimes there is a time of war. We are all dependent on transportation. And these three main building blocks bring us to main two titles, let's call it. One of them is the attack surface. Everything is connected, so as a bad guy, I can attack, or the bad guys can attack whatever they like, and they can jump, lateral movement, they jump from place to place. Air gaps are a nice joke today, let's admit it, and there is a huge problem. And the potential damage is enormous. In IAI, I'll show it to you afterwards, but I want to mention it right now, we are using a doctrine, how to identify critical infrastructure, critical assets. And there are three main tasks. One of them is the human life, and definitely these building blocks, these problems, inherent problems can damage human life. Second is the economic damage. Think about what's happening right now in Europe with the absence of a lot of drivers, because in Britain and other places, we know that there is the economic damage can be huge one. And the third thing is operational continuity and business continuity. And definitely, transportation can cause all of these problems. And therefore, we refer it as a critical infrastructure. And therefore, if I may, it's not only a problem of one country, especially in a continent like Europe or North America, when everything really connected. And when you can move and jump and do whatever you like in different places. And of course, in cyber, we don't have any borders. So this is not only national, and it's definitely a national problem, but it's also an international problem. So when we started to dig in, we find a major problem. Because the level or the number of players in this ecosystem, in this environment is enormous. And these are just examples. I'm sure we can find way, way more like the supply chain, but we can find users and drivers, each one of them with different level of awareness and capabilities, and let's call it tools and understanding of the threat. The infrastructure itself, the trains that I just mentioned a few minutes ago are a wonderful example. The trains themselves and the railroad, and what is happening right now with smart roads and smart signs and smart traffic lights, and etc. The vehicles that I just mentioned, the mass transportation, and it's a great an example for it, and of course the government, and not only the national level, because maybe we can expect the national government to have some tools and some understanding or the ability to invest money, but what is happening in our municipal environment, in the state, in the city, in the county, whatever, we can see this is a multiplayer environment, and let's call it reality is becoming way, way more, way problematic. And of course, there is a segmentation. And these are just an example, starting with the OEM, technology providers, service providers, other parts. Let's admit it, this is a real challenge, how to approach them, how to teach them, how to demand things from them. And of course, as a representative of a vendor, it's also a huge opportunity. It's very easy to identify at least some of the customers. I mentioned maritime a few times today. In our project with maritime, we are facing a real problem to identify some of this, of the customers. I mean, here it's very easy. The question is, do they have the money or the awareness or the ability to invest it in cyber defense? This is totally different. At least we can identify a large number of customers. But again, this is not only opportunity, especially not a business one, but also an operational challenges, a huge operational challenge. And this is what is happening with the infrastructure. And this is a great example. You can see it the least. I'll be happy to share with you this presentation, of course, if you want to. This is very, very important. And think about, let me tell you, during my more than 20 years of cyber activity, I learned how to identify at least some of the targets. And these two lists are actually a huge list of targets. And I'm sure that the bad guys don't need me to say it. I'm sure that they are familiar with it and think about these problems. Oops. This is another example for it. For the components, for the ecosystem, this is a different way. And I think it's very important to look at this slide, because when we are trying to find the solution, and when we are speaking about end-to-end solution and zero trust and other, again, buzzwords, but we try to support them, of course, we need to understand where to put our money, where to put the effort, where to encourage or to help the government and the other regulators to work in. And these are just an examples, very, very important examples for this, in order to try to identify who is relevant, who is more relevant, where to put the money, who needs our help. Now, sometimes people come to me and say, hey, the technology does itself, does what she needs to do. We can't block it. I've never said that I want to block, of course, technology. And technology is going to solve the problem. Well, this is very, very nice, but I have to say that I doubt it. Based on my experience in different international projects, technology, it's a wonderful thing. We can't live without it. But every advancement that we can see over here is not only an opportunity, not only a solution, but also a problem, at least a potential problem. And we need to understand it. And we have also to admit, in some of them, you know, everyone can speak about today about DevOps and about built-in security measures and technology and coding and whatever. And it's wonderful, wonderful thing. I can assure you that in our solutions for different solutions for different problems in the smart mobility, we have this magic technology inside it. Well, it's good. It's way better to use it than not to have it at all. But this is not a complete solution. This is definitely not a complete solution. And another thing, I think that we have to admit that in some of the solutions, there is no defense at all, defense measures at all. On the contrary. And we can see, just for example, the communication. Communication is becoming way, way more advanced than it used to be a year ago, even today. Some of our customers are using 5G. On one hand, it's one of the best things ever. On the other hand, everything is becoming more and more connected, more and more, everything is relying on each other. And then we have a problem, a huge problem that we cannot solve easily, but we need to adopt a different approach. Just a minute. The presentation just got stuck. So some other people tend to come to me and say, hey, we're working according to standards, and this is going to solve the problem. Well, this is wonderful ideas, and I strongly believe in standards. I think that we need to obey them. I think that we need to comply with them. I think that we need to invest in improving them and to cooperate with them. But and this is just an example that I took from somewhere, look at the number of the standards and think about it. Some of our tools are coming from different tools, and products are coming from different continents, obeying different regulators, putting their own technology inside it. Well, this is very, very, very nice. But first of all, it can create its own damage, a huge damage, let's admit it. Not all of the vendors everyone wants to sell their products, everyone wants to gain some money, everyone wants to have its system to be the best, but not necessarily they are safe. So in my opinion, standards are not good enough. And these are just an example. This is about the trains. We can see wonderful white papers. We can see wonderful tools. We are full of standards. And then people saying, hey, we're investing a lot of money because of it. It creates damage. And then somebody is coming and dealing with the systems. In this case, it was in San Francisco against the ecosystem. Some of the applications created a huge damage. It didn't risk any human life back then, but still it created a lot of damage. And in my opinion, standards are a wonderful thing, but they are not, yes, okay, but they are not good enough. And just as an example, in here, we all remember ISIS. We are very glad to say that they are a bit superior, or at least we can't see them on a daily life right now. But I can ensure this is from one of their posts. They're speaking about dealing with trains. We know that they have some of the OT capabilities needed for doing so. So these are just an examples. And again, standards are very good and technology is wonderful, but it's definitely not enough. And those are the individual results. And those are just an examples that I took from the network. Some of them pretty funny, some of them are terrible, some of them just nice cartoons. But think about if you're using Waze or Google Maps and the system is collapsed, what is going to happen to you? And again, you can see it right now. It's going to risk our human lives. It's going to create a financial damage, and it's going to damage our national and international operational and business continuity. So I mentioned CyberTech, our national smart transportation lab in Israel that we won with our terrific and very distinguished partners. So we're establishing it, and this and the offering of this lab, and this is just an example how to approach the problem. First of all, it's a collaboration, a think tank. Okay, we're going to check out the systems. I'm going to speak about the system in a minute, but we're going to share it with others. We're going to allow the regulator to understand that there is a problem and what is the problem. We're going to create a work environment. We're going to encourage, we are encouraging the working and the analysis of the systems. We provide services, and we're going to check the products. We can check the product. If somebody wants to use a smart transportation device or platform in Israel, he will, or even today, need to check this system, from at least from the cyber. I'm going to use cyber from the cyber perspective to understand that this system is immune, this system is safe. But it's way more than that, because if you remember, I said at the beginning, we can't rely only on defense or analysis of system. We need to encourage the innovation. We always claim in IAI that the best thing, or one of the main advantages of cyber, is the ability to push forward or to move the needle, the GDP needle, and innovation is a major part of it. This lab or this center for excellence will be able to give a recommendation and to improve the system. It's very nice to understand that there is a problem, but we need to lay our finger on it and to find a solution. And again, this idea of the Israeli Ministry of Transportation was great and of course, my former colleagues in the INCD was great. And I think that this offering can move an ecosystem and national cooperation and international cooperation way forward. But again, in my opinion, at least this is definitely not enough, because this is only one part. This is a major building block. We need to create a situational awareness. Somebody should be accountable. Somebody should understand what is going on. Somebody should try to provide an early warning that somebody is going to mess with our system. And for example, today we are offering what we call a smart transportation SOC, cyber SOC, in order to control all of the systems, starting with the trains, with airports, with seaports and maritime vessels, okay, and with transportation infrastructure, different infrastructure and different devices, including the platforms themselves, truck, buses, and smart cars. Because otherwise, we cannot ensure that we're going to provide the required level of defense. And as part of it, we are speaking about a platform that allows the different partners, and I refer them as partners and not as customers, to share between themselves the lesson learned in automatic way. Of course, I'm not expecting every driver to share information with each other. I'm expecting the system to share information with each other, and to have a better way to train the manpower. This is just as an example. And in here, of course, I'm speaking about the professionals, the cyber professionals that are going to be, even today, are responsible for this domain, for this smart transportation, cyber domain. Otherwise, we're going to be exposed. Thank you very much, guys. Any question?
Thank you very much, Noam. We have a few questions from the audience. The first question touches upon ransomware. So it says, how do you foresee ransomware evolving and impacting the transportation industry, in particular critical infrastructure, for example, air traffic control or autonomous vehicles, which is something, it's not about impacting a smart home, but, critical infrastructure.
Look, I have to tell you a story. In 2015, it was the first time that we faced the first wave, let's call it, of ransomware, crypto lockers back then we call them. And then we started to speak about the vulnerability of different sectors in our modern life to this problem or to these sectors. And people stand to say, hey, it's not relevant because of technology, because of different devices, because of whatever. A month ago, a major hospital in Israel was attacked by ransomware. And it was unbelievable because who is going to attack an hospital? And people did it. The bad guys have no, let's call it sacred targets. And the transportation sector is one of the best targets in the world, because of connectivity and all the other things that we're all familiar with. Now, of course, the ecosystem is under a huge risk. And I'm sure that you remember, I showed the main attack vectors, and the servers is one of them. So the major one. So, and of course, servers are vulnerable to ransomware tools. Now, I think that we need to define most of the attacks, the ransomware attacks, are, let's call it bad luck. Somebody is trying and he has huge success to penetrate a very good target, so he's trying. So of course the transportation is vulnerable. Maybe not in OT. I didn't face OT ransomware yet, but let's admit it, most of the OT systems are connected in this way or another to IT, so they are vulnerable. The second way, the second pillar, the second option is that somebody is going to target one of the transportation. And in this case, let's admit it, the ransomwares are just another warhead, but this is very advanced and very easy to use warhead. So for example, if a terror organization or rogue country, whatever, is going to try to mess with advanced country or advanced military, let's admit it, transportation capability, this warhead is wonderful. We know, you can take it out of the network very easily. You get a manual that helps you to operate the system. And so this sector, this transportation sector, is totally vulnerable for it. Maybe not the OT system themselves, but it doesn't really matter. Now, I can think about other warheads, as I call them, or threats, not necessarily, we used to divide between CNA that create damage, like ransomware, and CNA that somebody just want to penetrate the system and steal its secrets, your secrets, or the vendor secrets, or OEM, it doesn't really matter. So this technology, our technology is vulnerable, and we have to prevent it. But I have to say, when you ask me about ransomwares, because of all of these years and the different waves that we are facing and dealing with, today, I'm speaking about my technology, the ability to deal with the unknown, we're all familiar with the known, with the unknown, with prevention, with early warning is much better. I can't provide a bulletproof, 100%. Bulletproof, yes, but not 100%. So we have solutions. We have a different kind of, let's call it EDRs, but it's way more than EDR or XDR. It doesn't really matter right now. So we have the solutions. I'll be more than happy to elaborate about them, but this is an arm race. We can't, sit and wait and claim, hey, I solved the problem. I didn't solve the problem. I have some solutions. And we need to advance, to invest, and to check our systems all the time.
It's very interesting and concerning at the same time. So you touch upon the issue of ransomware in some Israeli healthcare organizations. We saw that last year in French hospitals and also in Germany. Actually, there were a couple of cases. I think it was Germany and Canada. I may be wrong, but Germany was for sure, of some people who died due to the healthcare organization being impacted in the middle of medical treatments. So it's very, very concerning, because what we are seeing is that sort of the evident, but it's also impacting that criminals, they don't have any problem just to attack whatever it is. Okay, so In the case of transportation, I mean, it's very concerning because, you know, you think about, for example, airports in Europe. We have extremely heavily busy airports in Europe. Just think about Heathrow, or just think any others, right? So, you know, it's the problem that I foresee, and you know, I'm not kind of an expert, but I'm an aerospace engineer, you know, with specializing in air traffic control. I mean, if you just think about, you know, how blackmailable that is with technology where ransom is extremely blackmailable, because it's a matter of time. You can wreak havoc in an industry.
I have to say, you mentioned air traffic control. Think about Eurocontrol, this system that everybody is connected, everybody is relying on. And the system is connected to the internet. And, you know, in some places, just as an example, let's take one of the best systems, the most secure system in the world, the SWIFT. I'm talking about now about finance sector. They claim that they are totally immune. Well, somebody attacked them because there was a weak link somewhere and somebody messed with it. And this is just an example. And in the transportation, you mentioned the airport. I have to say, a few years ago, I was stupid enough to assume that I have a lot of IT experience. I can solve it. It's just another, let's see it as a different country, a small-sized country. And it was, of course, bullshit, sorry. Because, first of all, it wasn't small. It was huge. The number of networks was huge. The number of critical assets was huge. The number of employees, the different people that got connected to the system was enormous, and it was very easy to create damage, to stop. I mentioned the operational continuity and business continuity. It's the easiest thing to do. I just need to block one of, you know, the suitcase, in this case, his desk, and I'm going to create a huge chaos. And this is the main problem. But it's not only in airports. Because a few years ago, we spoke about airports. And again, today I can assure you, and I know it from my own experience, these are one of the most complicated projects that we have. But it's not only that, but also maritime. And because the ecosystem starts with the truck companies in different places, and it's almost impossible. So we had to build to secure them. So we had to build a scanner, a specific scanner, a cyber radar that scans all of the ecosystem from the outside, because the regulators didn't allow us to get accessibility to their systems. They don't want us to, you know, to walk inside it. So we had to invest and to develop a specific technology. And then we started in the last, I don't know, year, a bit more, to deal with land transportation, not only maritime one. And we discovered the chaos and the potential to create damage. These systems are so smart and so advanced, and they're moving forward so quickly, not fast, but it's unbelievable, and the potential for the damage is huge. And if I may, they're pretty, let's call it nice. I mean, I use the term sexy, so people are trying their luck, not only with ransomware, to try to say, hey, I can stop Tesla, and somebody had success. So these guys just tried. Another one tried to stop a plane, and he got not to stop, to get connected to the plane. He had success. We are all familiar with Chris. We like him very much. But this was the first time. What's going to happen in the next time? So we have to monitor the system. We have to have the ability, the incident, a specific IR, incident response capability. We can't rely to sit and say, hey, everything is okay. No, everything is on the edge, and we need to understand it to solve it. And I think that we have solutions. I know that some of the others have wonderful solutions. This is not a marketing, but we need to adopt. We need people, the decision makers, to understand not only the national or the international, also business decision, that they are exposed.
Okay, thank you very much. We have more questions from the others, but we don't have time to take them. So I encourage you then to get in touch with me, and I'm gonna put you guys in touch with Noam. We are about to jump into a fascinating roundtable covering the topic of are we doing enough to secure our critical transportation infrastructures? Noam is going to be there joining us. So please don't miss that out, because, it's important, and the guys definitely, know the stuff. I mean, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. I had a wonderful time. I'll send you my presentation so you can share it with the audience. I'll be proud if you're going to do it. And I'm here, so I'll be more than happy to answer any question, anything. Just send it to me, and I promise to try my best.
Thank you, sir. Toda raba. Bye-bye.
My honor. Thank you.